Welcome. This is our 54th episode of The Inner Lenses. Welcome. We have our conversationalists, Brett Corcoran, Gabby Sheshlock, Erika Naidoo, and myself. And I know you're sitting there and you're looking at me and you're thinking, wealthy, successful, charming, erudite, charismatic. But I want to be straight with you guys and let you know that I too have my days of self-esteem concerns, being anxious about speaking to the attractive woman on the train who Brett had no trouble speaking to. And I decided, in conjunction with our good friends here, that we would have a chat today about introversion, extroversion, trust, and what it means to put our faith in people. So we're going to the other extreme from misanthropy, whatever that is, to putting our faith and trust in humanity. Gabby, you mentioned sort of being somewhere on the introversion spectrum. I'm probably one of those extroverted introverts. I can make myself be with people and chat and stuff, but it is an effort. It doesn't appear to be in the same ballpark as, for instance, Brett, who is happy just to strike up a conversation with anybody, anywhere. So, what are our thoughts?
But for me, it's a balance, because I think we get too much hung up with labels like that, because being an introvert and being an extrovert, it's again just a label. And I don't think that anyone is fully an introvert or fully an extrovert. It depends on the situation. It depends with what people. I can be happily sitting at home on my own with no people around me for a year if you let me. But it doesn't do me any good, because I start overthinking. I go down thought spirals. So I have learned to actually go out, not to fall into those traps, because it leads me into depression, right? So going out, meeting people, having good chats brings up my energy level. It stops me from overthinking. It's actually good for me. So it's balancing me out. So it's less of an extroversion personality type. I think it's overrated. I think it has more to do with our communication style than with who we are. Because if we meet good friends, any introvert becomes suddenly an extrovert and wants to talk or wants to be listened to and wants to be acknowledged, right? So I think it's again just another way society has started giving us labels, and we are taking these labels on as identities. But I can't go out because I'm an introvert. I can't do this because I'm an introvert. And I think the eye opener for me was when I used to do stand-up comedy, because the best stand-ups would be technically labeled introverts in life, because they would go out and do their comedy on stage, but otherwise they would be not saying much. They would sit back, they would watch people. And that's why they were good stand-ups, because they were so quiet in themselves that they watched people really closely and saw what's going on. That's why the comedy was so good. So it's, even because I do public speaking classes and people say to me, I could never do a workshop, or I could never talk in front of people because I'm an introvert. And it's just a label which is given to us. We give the label to ourselves. It's holding us back. And the stand-up comedians are just a really prime example. The best ones I knew were all what people would call technically introverts. But I don't believe in those labels at all. I can't stand them.
You're
Damn it.
definitely not a label person, that's for sure. But I was told once that introverts don't make friends, they just get collected by extroverts. And I don't really want to be part of an extrovert's collection. So go on, Erika.
No, I was just going to agree with Gabby, right, about the whole labeling thing, because I do feel like it's situational. It depends on a situation and energetically. And the whole being collected by people is definitely not, no, thank you. I'll decide if I want to allow you to be part of my world as well. But I do think it's just tendencies, right? Where, if you had the choice, where do you lean? But on any given day, depending on where your energy is and what kind of day you're having and where your mind is, it can switch. Like I lean, we've discussed this, more on the introvert side, and I'm just using the word for a descriptor. But we went out last weekend and I was up there dancing with random strangers, people that I don't know, and having a great time, which out of my choice. I think it's all a choice thing. And it's like, if I have the freedom and the ability to make a decision based on what I feel like involving myself in, then I will make that decision based on who I'm with and where I'm at. But I need to be in control of where my energy goes. And if I don't want to talk to somebody, I'm not going to talk to them just because I'm supposed to, or somebody thinks I should.
I absolutely think this is brilliant, Erika. It's our choice if we want to talk to people. Even that saying, I heard that saying before as well, that introverts are just they're not making friends. Stupid saying. It's our choice if we want to be making friends with somebody. Nobody can become our friends only because they're an extrovert if I don't want to. It's completely our choice, right? So do I choose to spend the energy? Do I choose to go out? Do I choose to talk to this person or not? And I think that's the balance for me, because when I get tired, I can maybe go into my little home world for 3 days, not going anywhere, very happily. But I know as well, I cannot do that for a year. So I go out again and I look for my friends, and I go out and I actively choose to meet people. So it's all about balance and choice for me as well.
That's a slippery slope when you take on labels, because once you label yourself as something, now it's like you hung your hat on that and now you own it and you wear it with pride, even though it might be something that's holding you back. And I've seen that a lot. And just because somebody says you're XYZ, it doesn't necessarily mean that that can't be shifted. There just may be a little bit of work around that area that can shift that whole energy, and now you're no longer in that space. So the labeling thing, when I heard the labeling, I'm like, oh God, labeling. Oof. That's a big red flag for me. I've seen kids labeled all sorts of different things, and then they own it. And that's scary, because no, that's a superpower. You got to find the superpower in that label, because that's all it is. That label just has a meaning to it that if you take it on as to what you're being told it is, right, that's going to take everything away from you. But if you take that and you find out what it is, how can I use that to my advantage?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many wins in what we look at as that label in a negative way. It's the perception, or oh, now I got, no, you know what? All right, I have that, but how can I make this count? What can I do with this now? So,
I've seen, I don't know if you've heard of the Myers-Briggs testing. It's for the workplace, and it's supposed to be a way of identifying where, let's call them personality traits, fit in with others, about balancing teams and all this sort of stuff. But it's designed for the workplace. I've seen people put their Myers-Briggs initials, so MBJT as an example, on dating websites as descriptions in their bios. Seriously? You're going to look for a dating match on the strength of a work-based personality trait test to see where you fit in with a team of people? And for the most part, people wear facades at work to a greater or lesser degree. Aside from what Erika said in the earlier episode, probably many people don't realise the degree of her misanthropy at work. See how I'm blaming it all on Erika. And I would like to think the same of me. So I'm fully in agreement on labels, other than you, like Erika said, it's a starting point. I'm more likely to stay at home in my own company than I am to choose to go out to a party. That said, I'm also probably one of the people most likely to come back and say, oh, I'm really glad I went, that was great, and I had that cool conversation like you were saying earlier, Brett. So Gabby brought up a point between recordings about consistency, and I think there's a big part of how we are consistently as people and in the way we show up for people that probably fits into this. Do you want to go with that a sec, Gabby?
I think the consistency for me is to be self-aware all the time. what's going on for me. And rather than, because if we connect the consistency now with labels, it's labels means we're not consistent. Labels means we're getting stuck because we grow, we get older, our lives change. So we might need different or new ways to be around people or be around work or whatever it is. But if we have those labels, right, we might think we are consistent, but all we're doing is actually hanging on to some rules and regulations we have created for ourselves, and those are leading us down the wrong garden path one day. So that's how, now that we're talking about labels and we think of consistency, oh, I'm a really consistent person, I'm like this, I'm like that. And it's not only being an introvert or an extrovert, it could be any label we give ourselves, and we're consistent sticking with that. Consistency becomes just fixed. It becomes a hindrance. So I think being flexible is probably the key to living a fulfilled life and actually go with the flow. What is important to me now? What do I need now? How has my life changed? How are circumstances changed? And if you think about it in our practices, most clients I get are probably people who need a new way of living and are fighting absolutely against it because they're holding on to the trusted old, whatever labels they gave themselves.
So with consistency, I'm consistent in looking at patterns that I wind up doing, right? When I don't want to do something, or I don't want to do that today, but then I do it, like Alex said, man, I'm so glad I did that. So I'm consistent in challenging myself when I don't want to do something. Oh man, I'm really going to have a good day at this, or I'm really going to enjoy this because there's something inside me that's telling me to not do it. And now I know the inconsistency, right? That every time I say, I really don't want to do this, I have such a good time that now when I have that feeling, I just misunderstand that feeling as it's actually telling me you're going to really enjoy this. You just got to go. Like it's like a battle, and it's understanding the feelings. And maybe we label it as one thing, and it's really not what that label is. It's actually recalculating or recalibrating what that feeling actually is by going through it and walking through whatever the feeling is and then doing your experiment for yourself. Right. So every time I feel like I don't want to, whatever, it keeps coming back. That was really good. So why does it feel that way then? Right. Is it that way so that it just wants me to know you got to do this? And it causes a feeling, well, is it something inside me? Like, well, you don't have to do anything. Who knows? That's my inner workings. But being consistent on challenging that piece has only shown me that there's a win. And it consistently shows me that it is a win. So I'm still in process of recalibrating that whole feeling and that labeling on, oh, I don't want to do that. I really want to do that. Well, oh, this is going to be fun. So it's just that relabeling, because I already know that when I feel that way, I'm going to have a good time, or it's going to be worth my time to go, right? Because I'm going to laugh, I'm going to connect, I'm going to just, or do something that I needed to do, right? Which in the end makes me feel so much better. So it's that recalibration of that piece of myself that I'm working on for myself. And that's the consistency piece and the labeling. So they're coming together, the consistency and labeling for myself and what we're talking about. So really interesting.
I think if we're going to have traits, longer term traits, it's much better to have them shaped in things like consistency and reliability and values led things, rather than subscribing to a label of I'm an introvert, but if I make myself go, I'll enjoy it. How about a complete reframe on that? And this is what ultimately what we have been talking about. And like Gabby said, it's why people come to us in the first place, for the most part, is Erika mentioned earlier about trauma and grief. And people would come to us in particular because it's like, I don't want my life to be controlled anymore by this reaction. Yes, slightly tongue-in-cheek, we were talking about if you've had that kind of experience, you're more likely to be misanthropic. But then people want to change that. They realise that that is what was and not what is. But if you cling to the label, you're never going to let that go. So there has to be the desire and willingness to change and the openness and receptivity to a different view.
What I think is, I'm realizing that we use the word consistent most of the time as an adjective that is a positive, right? Like that he or she is really consistent. They show up all the time, or they do this all the time, or discipline, consistency, that kind of stuff usually is a positive connotation. But what I'm hearing is that consistency can also have some negative qualities to it. All it means is doing something the same way over and over and over again. So great when it's leaning positively and you're doing things that are consistently that are helping you grow and healthy kind of things. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this is just spotlighting and bringing to the surface, and as a public service announcement, that be willing to be courageous enough and challenge yourself enough when you're noticing that you have consistency in things that are not allowing you to grow, right? Where you are consistently saying the same things that keep you stuck in a certain pattern, or you are consistently not doing something that probably should be happening in order for you to grow. So I guess it's more of a PSA for me. Public service announcement, just consistency is great, except when it's not. So just have the courage to challenge yourself. If you notice, like Brett said, if he notices a pattern, look at it. Why am my heels dug in here that I feel like I have to consistently show up in this way? What is this doing for me or not allowing me to do? And why am I consistently holding on to this label of I'm not a people person when really you're craving connection? What are you doing? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to fill your own prophecy here about what it is that you're getting in life? It's important to really spotlight that, because consistency on the surface sounds really positive.
It's the power of words, isn't it? Because you could say, I'm inconsistent in exercise, or I'm inconsistent in my diet. Actually, you're consistently overeating. You consistently resist going to the gym. It is just a flip of a word. And that is a powerful realization for some people. The way we, even joking about the pronunciation of misanthropy, it can be as little as that. The emphasis that we put on a word in a sentence can change our outlook completely. Brett,
well, a comma can change everything too, right? And just before you go, Brett, in what you just said, Alec, I think the difference is you wouldn't hear it. You are consistently overeating is going to come from somebody else onto you. So you immediately are going to get put into a defensive sort of being judged or whatever. But if you say, I am inconsistent with my diet, that's a truth blast right there. You can't deny that. You can't hide it. You can't get around it. You can't blame somebody else for judging you. That's you calling your own self out on your own shit. That is the highest form of inevitable change, if you're willing to be able to do that. So,
and that brings what I was going to say perfectly to it. So the biggest,
can't hear you.
The biggest part that goes along with what you just said is actually being aware or awake, right? So if you're not aware or awake and you're moving through life unaware or not awake, right, you're going to miss all those key points. And you won't be able to see that you're eating bad. You won't be able to see that, catch yourself going, I really don't want to do that. And then just don't do it, for me, right? When I catch myself saying, I really don't want to do that. And I'm like, I'm going to go do that because I don't want to do that. And that's telling me I'm trying to flip those feelings. But there's a key point that it's being aware or awake or whatever the word is for you. Conscious of what's going on takes that piece in order for you to start driving the ship. right? Because we can go through life on autopilot, but then the life is not really lived. When we start taking the wheel and we start being awake, aware, conscious of what we're doing, then that's when we start living our life. Oh, and there's the word. I'm living my life. What are you talking about? And there's the difference of the meaning, right? Yes, you are living your life, but you're not living your life to the fullest. There is living your life, and then there's living your life. Wow, you're recalibrating me. I'm living my life. I'm looking to shift out of whatever old beliefs were there and looking to recalibrate those and understand them. So now moving forward, it shifts everything, right? And I think that one piece is awake, aware, whatever the word is for you. It starts with that. Once you start catching yourself doing the same thing, that's yourself saying, attention, come on, I'm trying to show you this. We're doing it now for how many times, right? And then there's the first lesson. And then if you can stay with that and then catch, it will be there. The markers will be there, and it'll walk you through things that your body wants or things that you should have or whatever the word is, right? I can't put the word to it because it's something different for everybody, right? But it's not owning that label again. It's shifting the label and actually living. You're not living, that's this side, right? You're living your life. You're in control of it. You don't realize how much control you have over your miserable day. Just because you spilt your coffee on yourself on your way to work and that dummy cut you off and this and that. And then you walk in and like, you believe this guy cut me off and I got coffee all over myself. And then you go, oh my God. And now you're living that piece. Or you can be like, what a day. It can only get better now because now I don't have that person here. I got the coffee's already on me, so I don't care about getting my lunch on me now if I did, right? Let's get this day going and shift to the other side. Sometimes we get hung up in even the feeling of our morning, where if we were aware and awake to it, that we can actually shift out of it and shift our whole day, which would shift our week, our month, our year, and you would see big, in my perception, you would see big gains and big wins, right? Because that's where you start driving the ship. You're not allowing a couple of things to drive your whole day. And then the next day something happens and it does the same thing to you. Well, maybe it's trying to show you something. What part did you play in that? I don't know. I had no part. That guy was just a moron that just cut me off. All right. So why focus on that? Maybe it's happening again because it wants you to know that's nothing to focus on. What do you want to focus on for the day? So I don't know. It's a great conversation, I could tell you that, because it's definitely going down a really good following path of living and living. It's definitely two meanings.
It's down to choice again, isn't it? It's down to choice what we choose. What do we choose to focus on? What do we choose to think? What do we choose to feel? Because we have choice over all those things. Any path, and there's only two ways we can choose. We can either choose what brings us to where we want to go, or we can choose what we don't want and work towards that. It's for example, Alec, you brought up with Eden. I can be consistent in eating healthy, or I can be consistent in eating unhealthy. And that's exactly the choice I make. I can make the choice to actually be healthy, or I can be honest and say, you know what, I don't want to eat salads. I don't give, put in plain English, I don't give a shit about exercising. And I don't want to eat a healthy food. I want my McDonald's burger and I choose to eat it. So maybe it's just a question of getting actually honest with that. Not that I should eat healthy because the doctor says I will die earlier. But if you prefer your burgers, you choose them. You have to make peace with the fact that you probably are cutting off 10 years of your life. But if that's what you want, at least own it. Rather than have a bad conscience and regret what you're doing, just own it and enjoy it while you're doing it, even if it does damage. But be honest about it, because it's our choice. That's what you choose. I overeat on sweets in the evenings. I know that. And I have a few kilos too many, but I'm at peace with it because that's what I choose.
How do you feel after? That's
Because
that.
I know I've chosen it.
No, I
I
know,
don't
but
beat
I'm
myself
talking
up over it because I have the choice not to eat it if I don't want
for
to.
me, like McDonald's. I want it, and I'll give myself it. But then when I eat McDonald's, my body goes through this big hurdle. And even though I wanted it and I gave it to myself, all right, I'm not having McDonald's anymore. I don't know why I did that. Even though I wanted it, right? And I can give myself it, but if I'm aware of what it's doing to me, right? So you can have those burgers, and this is the aware piece. Eat and feed yourself whatever you want to have. But if your body after that is telling you, what the hell are you doing to me? And you start feeling XYZ, whatever that may be, then that could be the thing that's going to tell you, it's okay, I get that's good. My body does like that. Or, oof, my body didn't like that. Maybe I shouldn't give. And then there's your choice. And so healthy is basically listening to this thing that we're inside, right?
Yeah.
That moves us around and we get control of. However, this thing wants to eat. I got to feel into what it is when I eat this, like coffee. I love my coffee. Would I tell myself I can have a cup of coffee? Yes, at night, because I don't sleep, right? Because that's what coffee does to me. So at night when I go, I'm not going to have a coffee, or I'll have a decaf because I really like coffee that much.
But it's down to choice again. That's exactly. I, for example, don't eat any fast food at all. You won't find me in McDonald's ever, right?
Mhm.
But I like my gold bears in the evening, Haribo gold bears. And if I buy a pack of it, I will eat it, and I know that. So sometimes I just don't buy them because I know it's not in the house. But when I buy them, it's my choice. I choose to buy them and I will eat it in the evening and I will feel good about it and I don't have a bad conscience about it. And that's it. I make consciously a choice. It's not that, oh, I really want it. I eat it now, then I have a bad conscience afterwards. I stopped doing that because it's my choice. I have to own it. Full stop. Even if my body feels shit afterwards, it was my choice. So let's own it.
And that's where change can come in if you want it, right? But it is a choice, and that's owning the choice. I love that. So you're owning it. And then even if you do see that it's not, you're still owning I made the choice. And the next time you can choose to not, if it was a negative return on what it was, no matter what we do. I love that. Yeah, 100%. And that brings that owning piece into it, right? Owning what you do, that's being aware. You chose to do that. And you know what I mean? You're happy you did it because rightfully so. But that's the aware piece, right? That's the awake piece. I love it because that goes right in handy.
Any closing thoughts from people on consistency, labeling, choices, whatever else it is that we've covered?
I don't have anything specific about all of that, but don't want to let this episode go without acknowledging that this is almost our 1-year anniversary of recording our podcast here. So congratulations to us for being consistent in a healthy way, at least doing this. So awesome. Good job on us.
Yes, making the choice to come back and hopefully raise the collective vibe of conversation on YouTube channels. Gabby, anything from you?
Just be aware of your choices. It's all up to us, no one else.
Brett, a final word?
Life.
Live it.
Just
Yes.
don't live your life.
We will be back in the next one. We will tap into the good conversation that Brett is building up to. We're going to make him take the lead in the next one. No, we're not going
I
to.
have to choose to take the lead.
You have to, exactly so. As ever, contact details are in the blurb somewhere down below, and we will see you in the next one. Cheers, folks.